Welcome to the Chasing Thoughts podcast. Listen in as Mindy, Keith, and their guests take a deep dive into their own minds and souls to investigate the beauty of imperfection, challenge their beliefs, and embrace the richness of living a truly authentic life. Welcome to Chasing Thoughts.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to season 2, episode 11 of Chasing Thoughts. You get Keith and I again because our guest didn't show, which is kind of cool because Keith did something really big this last week, and I really would love for him to share about his experience with that. So tell us about what you did.
So I did a new thing and I was terrified. But it was so cool. So Connecticut is right now, they have a bill in front of the legislature that is about decriminalizing small amounts of psilocybin. And I normally stay out of the political realm, but I decided to go there and share my own personal testimony with using that medicine and what it's done for me. And like one of the things that I said in the testimony is like, oh, after 25 years, it allowed me to begin to live again. All right. And the idea behind that is when we're born, like there's this philosophy called tabula rasa, which is blank slate. So when we're born, we have this blank slate. And immediately all the experiences that we have from parents and as we grow up from maybe church, school, friends, whatever, begins to create the layers of who we become, right? And that allows us, like it dictates how we see the world and then how we're going to respond to things that happen to us. So when I started using psilocybin, what I noticed was it began to work. It began to make me question my belief systems that controlled how I operated, and saw that they were all sort of put on me by other people. There were things that I adopted as true and then never questioned. And it created a large amount of problems for me over my life. So one of the things just from church growing up was, because I was born, just simply that act, which I had no control over, I deserved to burn in hell for all of eternity. And as like a 3, 4, 5-year-old kid growing up with that, I learned over the years that everything that I do is wrong because I am so wrong and so sinful. Like I always remember hearing two things like even your best is worthless. God is, the only thing good in our lives is God. So even when I do something normal, it's bad. And that belief system infiltrated all aspects of my life. Like last night, Sandy was out with my daughter at like a sushi making class that they did together. And I had to make dinner for myself. And I'm not good at that. So immediately that belief system kicked in is I'm going to screw this up. I can't do it. And this is before I even started trying to do it. And when I actually went to do it, I was having so much anxiety. My chest hurt, all of this stuff on the verge of a panic attack, simply because I always need somebody else to do it because no matter what I do, I'm wrong. And psilocybin has allowed me to challenge those belief systems and begin to shift into creating a belief system that I want for myself. Even now, like I'm more loose, I'm more animated, because I'm not just like, let's do this podcast and I have to sit here like I'm Stephen Hawking, like in my chair, like I could just be me and not worry about what I'm doing or saying. So that's what the whole testimony was about. And the fact that it can help the veteran suicide issue that's going on, which the VA says it's about 16, 17 a day, but there was some university, I want to say Alabama, that did a study and their results came back with 24 a day. So I figured 22 a day is still a pretty good, pretty good number to go with. And the whole thing wrapped up with I I I get the sentiment behind thanking somebody for their service. But one of the things I learned on this medicine is life is all about a paradox. We can feel like our world is ending while we're okay. I mean, that's basically what an anxiety issue is, and panic and all that. Our body trying to keep us safe, even though we are completely safe, made up, the threat is made up from the stories we tell ourselves. And this can have such an impact on that veteran suicide issue. I truly believe that it can be another source that is used to help people, to help people change their belief systems, change how they see the world, change their hopelessness into something back into like that love of living. Um, and when I was done, I didn't know what to expect. I imagined there might be a question because I mean, veterans are kind of a hot topic, they're talked about everywhere. Um, and the issues that they face and the help that they need. But when I was done, the chairman asked for any questions, and I looked up, and it was just like this one guy I did saw, he was like this. Like nobody wanted to say anything. And I don't know how these sessions actually work, so I don't know if that's a normal thing. But what kind of got to me, we were talking about this earlier, is another woman who talked about psilocybin. She introduced herself as a Reiki master, and she got like 5 minutes worth of questions on how to become a Reiki master, what they do. And I'm like, okay, so you like these guys that don't know what a Reiki master is, are asking quite, but I'm talking about veteran suicide. And I felt like once again, it was a thing of, let me say these things. Thank you for your service. And then that's a way, like when we talked about grief, we don't really know what to say to people.
Yeah.
So we say things like, if you need anything, let me know. And that's kind of a way to assuage our own whatever guilt feeling, whatever it is, and that I think that thank you for your service has become that. It's a way to kind of let me know, oh, I appreciate what you did. Okay, well, I need you now to stand up and help me fight. And no, and the one other time I experienced that was when I started cannabis, and a buddy of mine started a Facebook group called Cannaboots. It was for veterans finding relief with cannabis. And everybody was like, that's so awesome that you're doing that. I'm so excited for you. I'm like, I'm going to send you the Facebook group. Like, would you follow us? And nobody followed. They were like, no, I don't want my employer seeing that. I like this because I don't know if there'll be repercussions. They'll like drug test me. And again, like, so it's the lip service without the action. And one of the things that I've realized on psilocybin was that words, it's one of those paradoxes. Words without action are worthless. They're hollow.
Yeah. First, I just want to take a minute to like sit with how big that is, that 22 people a day are committing suicide, and literally millions more are suffering, veterans. And it's so big. And you're right, we don't feel comfortable with stuff like this. We don't want it to be true, especially in America, where we want to keep the military industry strong and keep spending money on it and have, right? Like, if we admit how much it's hurting people, that would have to change the way that we spend money. And as we've talked about before, living in a capitalist society means that money is the highest goal. And so things like this just get pushed under the rug. And yeah, it's just big. There's no words for how big it is.
I don't even know why I'm getting emotional.
I think because it deserves emotion, because it's, you have firsthand experience. This is your life.
And looking back at this point, we need to understand that these are children, these are kids. They're not even allowed to drink, but they're allowed to kill and they're allowed to be killed. And we glorify that. But they're kids. And predominantly from middle to low class.
Yeah. Yep.
And their lives are, when our identity becomes solidified between the ages of 20 and 25, or let's say 18 and 25 or so, but when you join the military at 18, your identity is still malleable. It is not completely solidified, and then it's changed. And it's changed in a purposeful way. And they don't train you to logically think through things. They train your fight or flight response to react in certain ways because you don't have time to think. You have to react, and you have to react right. And I even read this one thing in this book called Restrepo, where there was an ambush, and this sergeant, like, I don't know, when I was in, like, I thought of the sergeants as like the old guys, but again, like I said, now from this point, I see like they're 23, 24. And it was a squad leader, and he was running back and forth, exposing himself to fire, coordinating his guys to do what they had to do while he also returned fire. So he had about 30 different things going on in a situation that most of us would be curled up in the fetal position screaming. And he was so under control that he was not yelling. He was directing fire. He was talking. He was getting sit reps from his guys. Like, all that stuff was going on at the same time. And then when people like, geez, I'm having a hard time. I did not expect this at all. And then when he gets home and things start falling apart because he's now living in the civilian world with a military identity, and it's a cultural shift, and there's no assimilation back into the civilian world. So you feel out of place. You feel like you don't belong. And help comes in the form of pharmaceutical medications and different types of therapy. Like, when I first started going to the VA, it was prolonged exposure therapy. And then they found out that that doesn't work, even though the VA said, this is I'm sorry, this is the greatest therapy that we can offer. And they said 1 in 10 people actually finish the therapy. And then they say, okay, so if 1 in 10 finish it, here's one that went through 100%, 100% success rate. I'm like, dude, no, that doesn't work like that. I went through CBT, and in The Body Keeps the Score, Bessel van der Kolk talks about CBT therapy. And in the largest study of CBT, they showed that it's a 50-50. So it's basically like flipping a coin. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. For me, didn't work. And then after that, my treatment from the VA became, take this med, take this med, take this med, and I'll see you again in 6 months for 15 minutes. That's pacifying.
Mm-hmm.
That's not helping.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's so powerful right now is admitting when something, you don't like it, it's not good, it's fucked up. I think sometimes we have the tendency to just make the best out of it, or right, like, we don't want to blame anybody, or we don't want to, I mean, I think I see this all the time with my clients. they don't want to admit that what they're going through sucks ass and sit with that. Right? And the truth is, what you went through sucked ass. What you're still going through sucks ass. It's not fair. It's not right. There's no help coming from the people we look up to, our government. And when you come home to those truths, I think you have more power to work within them versus denying them. It just doesn't feel good to come home to those truths, right? I also really, really loved the way you talked about examining your layers after, you got help and you started working more with psilocybin, because I have found that that level of self-investigation, understanding what my layers are, and purposely going back to investigate how is the person who my mom was made me who I am? How did my dad make me, right? And really looking at all my layers and understanding who I am. And like you said, what do I want to change? What isn't true for me? But that takes a lot of intention and attention to do that self-investigation and that work. But I think you're right. I think that's really where freedom lies for all of us, is in that investigation.
Yeah. I starting this, I've never felt at times more trapped and at times more free. Trapped because like my mind will slip back into the old habits and then come out, slip back into the old habits and come out. And it's funny, I've been feeling, I'll have all this anxiety, and then I'll start thinking like, you know what? I don't have a deadline. I don't have to do this now, type thing. Uh it's all, and then I'll feel everything relax, and then 5 seconds later, I feel it all come back up, so I have to take the time. And one of the biggest things that I realized is that my thoughts are bullshit. Our brains are so amazing that they will give us every variable that is possible of why something is going on, why something is wrong, why somebody is about to do something to us. And it all comes off of past experiences and the emotions that we felt during those times, So being able to see that I don't have, my thoughts are suggestions from my brain. Could it be this? Could it be this? Could it be this? But I, which is above my thoughts, like my true self, my consciousness, I can choose which one I go with. And that's not an easy thing when you've never done that, when you've been driven by reactions to the thought that comes, no matter what that thought is. And it takes time and practice, and that time and practice can feel so defeating when the outcome is a horrible feeling inside.
Yeah.
When you feel like something is seriously wrong, something bad is about to happen, whatever it is. But that's where the freedom comes from. Like we have to walk through that. Growth is always painful. We talk about growing pains. You see a kid, like a baby, teething, and they're crying for no reason because their teeth are breaking through. I remember when I was 16, I started going to the gym with this guy I worked with at McDonald's, and we left the gym. I could not get my arms up on the steering wheel. I had to like drive like this because I was at muscle failure. The next day was such a painful day. Everything hurt. And then like, but at that age, you go around like you hitting each other in the chest and stuff. So like you're just in so much pain. But growth is painful, and we have to be willing to live in the darkness, knowing that the light is coming.
Yeah. I love how you said thoughts are suggestions and I get to choose which one to believe. And it's also my experience that the more creativity I use in that process, the better and better it gets, because it used to be I had a thought and I was just right. It's just right. That's the truth. It's not my thought, right? It's so connected with my thought.
Yes.
Then I stepped away and I'm like, well, it could be this or this, these two things. That's it. Right. And now, since I've practiced this sort of thinking long enough, I'll actually sit down and go, okay, let's start on this side of the spectrum and see if I can come up with 10 things, 10 different stories about, or thoughts about this situation, because I don't know. And I think where this has had huge impact in my life, and I think anyone in a relationship will relate to this, is I used to fight with my husband. And then usually, you take a break. We're like, okay, we take a break. All I would be thinking in my head is, I am so right. When is he going to realize that I'm right? I bet he is out there thinking about how right I am, and how, like, that would be all I would think while we were apart. And then when we came back together, I'd be sort of had this attitude like, so did you figure out that I'm right? Did you have enough time to figure out I'm right?
Yes.
Needless to say, that wasn't very effective, right? That did not bring us closer to understanding and compassion and love. So now what I practice is, we have a fight, we go away for a minute. My brain wants to start to do that I'm right, you're wrong thinking. And I go, stop. I'm going to imagine I'm you. What are you possibly thinking? Where are you coming from? How could you see this different than me? And I'll spend that time trying to come up with different stories, different thoughts, see things from a different way. And then when we come back, we actually have something to talk about, because there's more possible information there. Then we can be investigators together and figure out what's really happening in our dynamic. Is somebody's wounds coming up? Who's offended? But as long as you stay in that position of, I'm right, my thought is right, it's a disservice to you and anybody else you're in relationship with, because it's so limiting.
Yeah. I mean, it shuts down all communication, because if the other person doesn't agree that I'm right, then they're wrong. I mean, it's just black and white like that. You're either me or you're wrong. And you see that like go off like in so many different ways, especially when you start talking about growth and spirituality and all this stuff. I want to be a very spiritual person, but I don't want to play the character of spirituality. You know, I hate wearing jeans. And I wanted to look for like some like cool pants that are comfortable, because I was always like sweatpants and stuff, but they just look so bummy. I found beach pants. I never even knew these things existed. And I'm like, that's all I wear now, like beach pants and like funky t-shirts or whatever. And even in the winter, because they're so thin, like I just bought like long johns so I can just still wear them in the winter. But I don't want to like walk around in those like harem pants, like where that like goes down to like your knees and stuff. And I don't want to wear like these weird colorful shirts and like weird like I don't want to play the character. I want to be me. And that's another thing that psilocybin has kind of opened my eyes to, is that another one of those paradoxes are we are all individuals, and at the same time we're all intricately connected, and we have to navigate both of those things are true at the same time. So if I try to be just an individual, I lose compassion and empathy and sympathy and all that stuff for all of these other people, and I see them as the other. But if I try to just go into the connection, and I think that's kind of one of the things, a danger of it is now I start to put on a character where if I'm not doing, what's that dance style, ecstatic dance or something, like where everybody just like, if I'm not doing that, I'm not spiritual. And like we were talking before, about a video that I saw where this lady was talking about, if you feel any type of emotion with your clients, then you're not doing spirituality. It's all about you. and she has 3 spiritual directors that she meets with once a month to make sure that she has no emotion. I'm like, why do you want to live emotionless? I don't get that. But maybe that works for her. Maybe that's okay for her. And maybe that's okay for people that she works with. But it's not okay for me, and that's fine. You know, it's not a fight we need to have, me being me, who I am.
Yeah. And like you and I have discussed so many times, all of us are just, different circles, kind of doing different paths, learning, figuring things out. And for someone who right now, that sort of detached spirituality, if that's what they're attracted to, and they don't want to feel anything and they want to be Zen, that might be just a stepping stone on their path to something more, right? And we don't know that. And without that step, maybe they wouldn't get where they're supposed to go. So, like you're saying, it's not necessarily right or wrong. I would say that I used to practice that kind of spirituality and was with a group of people and friends who were really spiritual people. And I found it to be damaging. And I would say that I had to do healing work when I got out of that situation and that culture
Mm.
from that environment. So for me, I think it was valuable. I learned how to be the watcher, how to detach from my feelings. All those things are great skills to have. But for me now, it's about integration. And I heard Aubrey Marcus say something that I fell in love with the other day. I was listening to his podcast, and he said that he used to have these big spiritual events, whether it was on Psilocybin or at Burning Man, or where he would see certain things and his heart would open up and all, this kind of magical stuff would happen. And then he'd go back to sort of the drudgery of his life. And he kept working to make his life more magical and his spirituality more practical. And he said,
Mm.
now some days I can't even tell the difference. Like, it's starting to merge these fantastic spiritual experiences in my life. And I thought, that's so beautifully said, that integration, that it's not spirituality's over here. And then I go to, buy the milk and I take out the trash. No, spirituality is buying the milk and taking out the trash.
Yeah, I've never heard that before, but I think that's going to become like my favorite thing, because that's even using cannabis and psilocybin. And I know that I mean, because you're adding something in, and it does stuff. So I know I'm not going to create those feelings naturally. But like Sadhguru says, he has never used cannabis, but he's been stoned for 20 years, because it's a molecule like that we create inside. And I'm going to butcher, but an anandamide or something like that, but they call it the bliss molecule.
Mm.
And it's something that we create, so I want to learn how to create that in the everyday. Who can't? When you're surrounded by all of these people that are full of love and peace and, all this stuff, you're going to feel that, because their energy is going to radiate off of you. Even like when you're trying to motivate somebody, you yourself get motivated, so I want to feel that when I'm alone, when I'm just working on mindless tasks like a freaking content calendar or something like that. I want to feel as fulfilled and as purposeful doing that as I do going to a Joe Dispenza conference where hundreds of people are all meditating at the same time. Like, and I think that's the goal, the destination I want to get to.
Me too. Me too. I said that to my women's group as my goal, is I really want to see how integrated I can become, so that everything you said, and also I would add that when I am like on a substance or in a spiritual place, anything seems possible. Seems like
Yeah.
magic is possible, right? You see how the trees are interconnected and you think you're connected to them, and everything is. And there's thousands of stories about things that actually have happened for folks that defy physics or logic, right? And when I am in my day-to-day life, I want to expect that kind of magic. I want
Yes.
to live in a world where there's endless possibilities. Like, that's exciting to me. And I think that's that mindset of being grounded and connected and in the flow.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me ask you this. Do you think it's a process of getting there? Because like right now, I know that in my head, but I don't believe it here truly.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get that knowledge to sort of migrate down to like my soul, where it's just that's the way I see the world.
Yeah. But you did mention before we started recording having moments of that where you're just,
Yeah.
oh, I was just sitting here happy. I wasn't even thinking about who I am or what I was just being. And I think that it probably comes in moments, and then there's probably maybe, you get 50% of your life is like that 90%, but then you go through chaos and hardship, 10% of your life, 20. I don't think it's ever like you reach enlightenment and then you're 100% that way and it never changes. Because to me, that doesn't align with anything else I know about life. Life
Hmm.
is ever changing.
Yeah.
And so while I think I can get to higher and higher levels and don't go back to these really low levels that I experienced, for example, when I was young and married to a drug addict and completely attached to my mind, I'll never go back down there. But to have this idea that I can reach some plateau, that just seems erroneous to me because it's about the journey.
That's such a good point. That was that was one of the first things that psilocybin showed me was the importance of flow. Um, so I was walking through the woods and I was like just kind of swaying with everything. And I was so afraid like I'm gonna fall or something, but I never lost my balance. And I realized the more rigid I hold myself, the more easily I am to crumble and fall when the ground, my foundation is shaken. And it's something just popped in my head. Like, I mean, they even make buildings nowadays for earthquakes that are able to flex and move. So being flexible is so important. And I think that's that thing. That's what allows us, not to get there like grief and not having a destination, not to get there and be like, I've done it. I've reached enlightenment, like I've arrived. Now I can just kick back and do nothing. No, it's about keeping yourself in that and moving, flowing with the seasons and the shapes of life.
Yes. I know that you and I talk a lot about life coaching and how there's some amazing life coaches doing incredible work, healing a lot of people, and how there's also a very sort of predatory piece of it, and people who are getting clients in ways that you and I would consider unethical. And I think what you're talking about, rigid versus flexible, is one of the ways that a client, when they're going into any sort of therapy or life coaching or anything, can assess, is that the right place for them? Because I think anybody who comes with like a really rigid dogma, whatever that is, this is the way, this is how you do it, whether that's copy my morning routine, do these 5 steps in this order, or whether it's, believe in God or go to hell, whatever level of belief it is, I think that that can be a warning sign, because I believe that how each of us are nuanced. And while I might need a 5-step morning routine, I need a different one than you do. And I need
Yes.
a different God than you need. And I need a different. And so any helping modality, life coaching, therapy, should be helping you take an idea, compare it to you, see if how it fits, and then come up with a custom version of it. And I think if that's not happening for you, like with coaching or therapy, it's okay for you to find someone else.
Yes, I think that is so important for anybody looking into coaching for help, is ensuring, I mean, because it's so easy to motivate somebody into doing stuff that's not good for them. Um, like we were talking about before, I had got a course, that like this was going to be the answer. We're going to show you how to make courses, how to do all that. And they offered like these videos and stuff, and then this recurring cost and everything. And people, when I joined it, there's of course a Facebook group that goes with it, and people were quitting their jobs, not paying their bills, maxing out credit cards so that they can buy this course. And then weeks later, they'd be posting on the thing like, I don't know what to do. So they end up getting in trouble. And when you're looking for somebody for help, those angler fish, so deep in the ocean where it's like all black, and they have this little light that they dangle. And then when the prey comes and drawn to that light, they get eaten. And those things are like nasty looking, like teeth like that. And that's kind of like what it is. It's like there's like this angler fish method to coaching. Let me motivate you, let me dangle some hope in front of you, but there is nothing that is outside of you that is going to help. Like, and I don't know, maybe again, another paradox. Like somebody can help direct, somebody can help guide you, but they are not gonna have your answers. Your answers have to come from you. It has to come from inside. And to me, if a coach is not connecting you with the internal, for me, that's not a coach I want to work with. That's what's important. Not possessions, not how much money you have, not any of that stuff, but how peaceful are you? How content are you? How connected are you internally?
Yeah. And I know I see a coach, and I'm also in and out of therapy, as I try to tackle bigger pieces of my story. So I'm a huge fan of, you know, personal growth. But I feel like when my coach says something, hey, could it be this? What if you thought about it like this? Whatever. I have a feeling inside my chest that is either, oh shit, yeah, I, oh my gosh, right? Like a resounding yes. I can't believe I never thought about it that way, saw it that way. Or I feel like, no. And I need to have the kind of relationship with my coach where I can say, like, no, that really doesn't fit for me.
Yes.
They go, okay, because they're learning too, and we're becoming stronger and more powerful the longer we work together because
Yep.
we're both responding to each other. And anybody who says something like, well, I think that's what it is for you, and you're not looking at it yet, or something like that, like, hold the horses. Don't let people tell you what you should be thinking and feeling, because even if that's true, you're going to find that out on your own based on your investigation going deeper and deeper and deeper. Right?
Yes.
So it doesn't even matter if what they're saying is true or not true. Them demanding that you believe that now is completely inappropriate.
I remember the first client I worked with. I was suggesting that she do something, and she said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't think I need to. And she was so amazed because I was like, this is so awesome, because everything that we were working with, she wanted the confidence to stand on her own. It's like, so you just stood up to me. Like that's a win. Whether that decision is right or wrong, like who freaking knows? Time will tell. But right now in this moment, you did what you said that you wanted to do.
Yep.
Like I'm everything that we can do what's that saying? Life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us.
Yeah.
And getting somebody to see that, to be able to see right or wrong doesn't fucking matter.
Nope.
There is no such thing as right or wrong. And again, it's another paradox, because if me and you were meeting in person, I just punched you in the face, yes, that's wrong. But if like what I'm gonna have for dinner, if I'm gonna, go out tonight, if I'm gonna do, there is no right or wrong. There just is.
Yep.
You
It's
know,
just
and
experience.
yeah. And you'll know in the moment whether it's right or wrong. I posted a thing from Paul Coelho, the guy that wrote the
Yeah, I like him.
Oh yeah, he's so cool. And I got one of the most touching comments that I think I've ever gotten on social media. And it was a guy that read the book when he was young, and he said, I completely forgotten about this book, but your post has reminded me. He said, I've been feeling pushed towards this new experience in life, and I didn't know what it was all about, why I was feeling this way or what. And he said, because the quote was about, sometimes the destination has nothing to do about where we want to go, but what we're coming from. And he said that has given me a whole new perspective on this. And he was like, thank you. And it was, and that's what it's all about. I mean, if we take the black and white away of right or wrong, we have so much more to work with,
Mhm.
um, that we can find ourselves in that process. And your intuition will let you know. Yeah, I mean, you just have to be willing to listen to that instead of listen to the thoughts.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's another thing that a coach or a therapist can really be helpful with is holding that space because you don't know how to hold it yet. Or maybe you're going through something too upsetting to access that space. So I do what you described in practice all the time in my sessions where I say, okay, we're going to go to the field. That's what I call it. Because there's a Rumi poem that says, out in between the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. Right. And so we just, okay, let's just be here. It's okay. 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 Now let's look inside. What's agitated? What's happening? Right. We can go to that place of clarity where there's no right or wrong. You're just you. And then you can see, oh, there's this idea or this memory or this expectation that feels tight and gross inside of this field. And you can go take a look at it. And it's an easier way to access it sometimes than trying to access it through the thoughts where, you're asking a lot of mental questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, it's such a beautiful place to get into. And I think one of the dangers with the coaching method that tells you what to do is that's where it pushes you. I'm going to tell you the thoughts that you're supposed to have. And then those thoughts you're supposed to listen to. And I, I've just found, like, through my own experience, for me, is that's bullshit. You
Yeah.
know, so before we started recording, I shared that video with you. Um, and it was a guy that I know. I haven't seen him in years. He had moved away and stuff, but now he's popped up on my social media, and he was talking about coaching and how if you're not making money coaching, it's because of your mindset. Like if you're okay, I think he said, with the bare minimum, then you're only going to attract clients that offer you the bare minimum. And that made me question some things. Number one, what about people that need help, that don't have the means, the money to pay you $10,000 for a couple of months or whatever? And what about like, who are you actually serving? Like, one of the things, like, I started doing is I call Scooby Dooing my experience, right? So at the end of Scooby Doo, where they're like, let's see who's really behind this, and they pull the mask off, I found that a lot of times if I Scooby-Doo something I'm doing, I can pull the mask off and it's really about me, and that method of coaching to me is putting my worth above the clients. I only want clients that are good enough to pay me what I'm worth, because I want to have all of this stuff. And if I don't have all of this stuff, then I'm only going to get these piece of shit people down here that are like, I don't want them, like the dregs of society. I'm like, dude, that was, and knowing this person, like they have a serious anger problem, like that's borderline dangerous. Like I said, I haven't seen him in years. Hopefully he's changed, but when I did know him, that was the case. Um, I the thing I'm grateful for seeing his message is that it solidified for me. I don't want to say I don't want the people that can afford high ticket offers, whatever they call that. I want to be there for people that need someone to be there. I want to be the foundation for somebody that doesn't have a foundation. I want to be a constant in somebody's life that has never had a constant in their life. I want to believe in people until they can believe in themselves. I want to hold hope for people until they can hope for themselves. To me, that's what coaching has done for me. And that's what I want to do for everybody else. But I came from it in a weird direction. Even at this committee meeting, they were talking about the need of, they call them trip sitters. So if you're not going to do a microdose and you're going to take, a few grams, then they were saying you need to have a trip sitter with you. And I don't like the word need, because I couldn't afford that. So I took, I don't eat them like just from the mushrooms themselves, because like I spend more time gagging on those things, than anything. Um, so I'll get a chocolate bar, and I had one square, and then I was like, nothing. I'm like, all right, but because then my idea is like, well, all right, have another one. It's not doing having like, nope, 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 because I don't know if in 45 minutes all of a sudden I'm gonna be like talking to aliens in my house, So then I had another square, and then another. I experimented with myself slowly, collecting data, and yesterday I was just kind of feeling some things, and so I was like, what, I'm doing it. So I would say about 5 grams. And then just laid on my bed. I put a mask over my eyes and I just went inward. And it was such a beautiful, peaceful experience. Nothing major came from it except a feeling of peace, and now thinking about it, like that's exactly what I needed at the time. You know, so there is a large group of people that don't have the means, or maybe don't even have the mental capacity to say, okay, I believe in you so much, I'm willing to write you a check for thousands of dollars, and I'm not gonna just turn my back on them, because I was that person and I had to find my own way, which everybody says is so dangerous. And if it is, then why aren't we making it affordable for people that can't do it? I don't get that.
Yeah. I think there's also a consent and relationship building piece in it, because if you look at it through the filter of dating, you can see how ridiculous it would be for me to meet somebody 1 hour, like a complimentary session, and then say, okay, so we're going to have sex every single night for the next 3 months, right? They'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, no, that's crazy, right? That's sort of how it feels with these high pressure, big package sales from life coaches. And I think what you and I really are focused on is building a sustainable business where we have all these free giveaways, free offers, discounted offers, offers at different price ranges that are bigger, so that it's accessible to everybody, from free to I believe in an exchange, right? Exchange has to happen whether you're trading potatoes or money, right? I believe in
Yeah.
the exchange, but whatever that exchange is that's equal for two people is a discussion. And I think that when you build a business, especially a business where you have little freebies and this and that, or you have a podcast where people can get to know us, that's really how our relationship is built. Right? And that there's some honor to that that
Yeah.
it feels like to me. And so when I think about people out there in the world who I want to work with or I want to attract to me, I don't want to attract someone who will blindly follow me, or I don't want to treat somebody in that way where I try to possess them or own them. Right? I want a free, consensual relationship where we're both showing up to each session because we want to be there, because we're doing the work together.
Yep.
And
The guy I'm working with now, I me and him text probably 3, 4 times a week because every little victory that he gets in his life, the first like he's like, I want to let you know right away. And like I'm like, that to me, I would rather have that feeling than have a check,
Mm.
or have an invoice or whatever, with credit checks. Or I just kind of dated myself, but you know what I mean? Like that's just what it is for me. I have what I need. My house is small. Um, but it's mine. Like I'm content. I don't need this massive place. I don't need A buddy of mine just bought a new car, a BMW, and the key fob is like a weapon. If you hit someone over the head, it's like that big and it's like 10 freaking pounds for some reason. If you hit someone there, you kill them,
Mm.
and I don't, I have a Hyundai Sonata, we bought it brand new. It was a 2017 model, right? It's 2024. Thing runs beautifully. I don't need another car. I enjoy driving it because I've learned not to drive around and look at my buddy's car, this BMW that's freaking beautiful, that has basically like a 50-inch TV as his like console and stuff. I don't look at that and say, oh, I'm not as good as you.
Mm.
I'm like, dude, this is beautiful. It's amazing. I take the joy in his joy of that car, and I can recognize the beauty of how cool it would be, but I don't need it.
Yeah. There's been so much research done on how, if you're sleeping outside in the cold and you're hungry, obviously you're suffering. Then you have your needs met. There's a certain standard of living where you don't have to work two jobs, where you're not stressed about paying your bills. And then anything beyond that does not equal more happiness or more contentment, right? There's like a big jump in happiness for basic needs. But then all the data shows that if you're not happy on the inside, it's not going to change as you get richer. And I think that's the trick about the relationship with money, because like you and I said, we'd love to have a lot of money. We'd love to have a thriving podcast and a huge group and, make tons of money every single month. But my guess is we'd probably be doing things like find my mom a house or like opening up a free center in my town for people that, right? It's just more of a flow through so that I can give more and live more in abundance. It's not attached to an idea that I need certain things in order to have the status of that thing.
Yeah. Yes. I would love, like, my dream would be able to have a house that had a library in it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could buy, like, if a library closed down and I could buy that library and keep all the books in there, I would just love to live there. Um, but just have this library, like I have the entire vision, a nice big desk in there, massive windows, like a little area rug with some chairs, a couch, so I can kick back and read, like, but if I don't get that, I can still spend time in that library in here and feel how good it would be. I think sometimes we can reach our dreams and our dreams become so commonplace that they become white noise in the background, and we forget how much it means to us.
I was just thinking that last night. My husband and I have both been really busy. I think I shared with you, he's going back for a master's. He's applying for this new professorship. So it's been busy. And last night I was just thinking about how much I loved him and how I wanted to be intentional about making his coffee, jumping up on the counter when he got outside of the shower and giving him a kiss and sitting and talking to him while I brushed and shaved. And right, those intimate moments where I think, oh, it's the end of the day, I'm tired. I just want to read my book. Well, if I just pay attention to my husband for 5 minutes and go, hey, let me just sit on your lap and look at your face. Oh, baby, I love you. Like those tiny little things are what like bring light and joy to me and to him. And it takes intention to do that though, right? You have to be awareness to cultivate the moments that you want. And if you're just responding to life, you don't get those little moments, right? So
Yeah,
whether they're in your own head where I'm going to lay down and fantasize about my future, right? Or whether they're in real action, they have to come from you.
that is such an amazing point. And I think that, like everything is an epidemic nowadays, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's freaking everything. Like the epidemic of not sleeping enough, but there is an epidemic of reaction to life instead of awareness and taking steps with awareness and intentionality. Um, and it's such small things, like you said, like we think it's the grand gestures. I know when me and Sandy, like when everything was rocky and then we got divorced, like to me it would be the grand gestures. I need to go buy her something that is incredibly expensive, because the more expensive it is, that means that's how much I love her, you know. And then on this side of that whole thing, like wiping down the counter so there's not like water on it, after I'm done doing the dishes, hanging up the towel to dry instead of throwing it on the counter. That's what tells her that I love her. I remember we were in when we used to go to church, we were in a couples Sunday school class, and they were talking about how important it is to have like a date night or something, time set aside and that you can spend. And the conversation came around to, well, with my work, his work, school, all that stuff, because everybody, like they both had to work because the church had a Christian school, and if you don't send your kids to a Christian school, you're going to hell. So and it was expensive as hell. Um, and so everybody had to work and stuff, and they're like, we don't have time for that, or we don't have the money for it. So my dumbass, I raised my hand and I said, me and Sandy, we go shopping on Saturdays together, and we walk around Target, and we have a fun time and we laugh, and I do a lot of stupid things that makes her crack up. And I said, so that's our time.
Mhm.
And I've never gotten more bullied in church. Like people are like, oh, wow, big spender. Glad I'm not married to you, stuff like that. I'm like, you're not getting what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying that's the only thing that you do. But if you don't have those things, you can either sit back and say, well, on the black side, I don't got it. Nothing I could do. Life sucks. Or on the white, black and white, make up your own way.
Yes.
Make it work for you.
Yes.
That's the amazing thing about our minds. If let's say creation was correct. Let's say, God spoke and created the world 6,000 years ago in 6 days. Okay. If we have more possible neural pathways in our brain, which neuroscientists estimate it's 1 to the 1,000,000th power, it's a number that we can't even write, because there's not enough material on the earth to make enough lead to write that number. And if that is the power in our brains, and in the cosmos, there is 1 to the 80th number of atoms in the universe, estimated, that means that God, when he created us, gave us more power of creation in our minds than he allowed himself to create the entire universe. What can't we create?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
But the lessons that are the teaching that's taught is you have to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes that infinite ability of creation in our minds and it puts it in this box,
Yeah.
that just shrinks us and makes us feel like shit.
Yeah. I also think that we have to be really careful applying responsibility and like our power of creation going forward as a motivator and not looking back as a reason to blame self or other, right?
Mm,
It's not like, well, I was poor all these years because I didn't have a good enough mindset, or this bad thing happened to me because I had it's not used for blame, right? And I think sometimes that can be a really dangerous part of this sort of law of attraction conversation is that people can use it to blame self and others. And that's not what it's about, right? It's about forward thinking and going, how do I have the power in all these million different ways while I'm running errands at Target, while my husband's brushing his teeth, to alter my reality? And you are really altering your reality when you start to play with it that way. But I just want to make sure that nobody uses it looking backwards because that's not appropriate, right? Your path up to this point has been the beautiful, exact path you were supposed to walk.
yes. And that can be hard to understand, like, because when you look
Yes.
back, like, why did this horrible, horrible thing happen to me? And really like I think one of the most beautiful phrases that we can use, I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know why things happened, but I know that those things created this person today. And I happen to like this person. And I'm excited for who this person is going to become. And if it wasn't for the experiences that I had in the past, good and bad, I would not be me. And again, it's like one of those paradoxes. Like I hated the bad things that I've been through. At the same time, I'm incredibly grateful now that I'm very much separated from them that I went through them. And that's not saying if like tomorrow something bad happens that I'm not going to hate the fact that I'm going through something bad, you know, but maybe in 10 years I'll be grateful for that, or 5 years or whatever, hopefully less time than that, because then it gets kind of into like, reminds me of like the faith healing.
Mhm.
So like if you don't get healed, it's because your faith is not enough, where you then blame the person. And even with manifesting, it can get into that.
Yes.
Like well, I tried to manifest, we played around with that last week, after we stopped recording about the penguins. And I like that day, I saw a video of penguins that I have not really seen a lot of videos of penguins. It's more of like dogs and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. But if I didn't see it, it would be very easy for me to go, see, you didn't do it right. You didn't do it right. And really, it's just, I don't know. I
Yep.
don't know if it was right or if it's wrong. I don't know what all the variables, because I cannot see at that level of creation, you know. So who knows?
I think that what you just said was one of the most powerful things. I don't know. Because not only do we not need to prescribe meaning to our past situations, we don't need to prescribe it to emotions we have, right? Like, I feel anxious for no reason. I don't know why. Okay, right. I don't have to make up a story. But also, we can apply that to other people. So, if, example, my husband does something, I feel upset about it. My head goes, well, I wonder why he did that. Is he trying to I don't know why he did that. What do I want to feel in the moment? Is this upsetting enough for me to address? Or do I just want to feel peace and go, I don't know, whatever. Right. But there's this power to I don't know and to just stop prescribing meaning every single place that we go, every single person we encounter, And so I think that is a great place to sort of end this show because I just think that is so wise. And that if everybody listening just practice saying, I don't know, like 5% more in their life, my guess is that there would be more peace.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll include it in the show notes, but I read a lot of that stuff on this guy named Sadhguru, who has a bunch of different books, and I don't get some of his stuff when he talks about karma and stuff, but he's such an incredible storyteller. Um, and his outlook on the world is something that I feel is so good, you know. And he's the one that when I read that, like, we need to learn how to say I don't know a lot more, you
Yeah,
know.
that's very powerful
Yeah.
and very rebellious because we live in a culture that says the more you know things and the more sure of things that you are, you're safer, you're smarter, you're better. So it's a bit of a
Yeah.
rebellion to say like, I don't know, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we got to start, like, remember growing up, like, those knowledge is power. The more you know, the commercial, like,
Yeah.
little, it's like the more you don't know, like, with a little star going across.
Oh, I love it. All right, that was an awesome show. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you for listening to the Chasing Thoughts podcast. Please support us by liking, subscribing, or leaving a review or comment. We would really appreciate it. If you'd like to be a guest, we would love to explore life and what it means to be human with you. Please email us at chasingthoughtspodcast@gmail.com.